recording. So I've got Lance and his wife. I didn't get your name.
My name is Kim.
Hi, Kim. Good morning. I wanted to jump on a Zoom call and just kind of share some stories. I've been supporting realtors and lenders for a while, and I'm also a client of Jerome's. Jerome got my wife and I into our current house back in September. We put 5% down, but it's always interesting, hearing people's stories because, I've talked to my kids, I talk to friends and family members, and I always find it interesting how skeptical people are that you can get into a house, with little to no money out of pocket. So Jerome helped me navigate through some difficult stuff last year that I don't think, anybody else would have been able to. So I'm grateful for that. And with that, why don't you tell everybody who you are and just kind of your story with working with Jerome. And one of the purposes of this is to help kind of educate people and just make them aware that when you hear you have to put 20% down when you buy a house, it's not always the case. So
certainly, yeah.
Before you get started, Lance and Kim, one of the things I wanted people to realize, it's not just me. We do have a team. We do this throughout the whole state of Texas. Matter of fact, Richard's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, right? And you guys are in Houston. And just want to make sure that people understand that this is a team effort. We have departments that handle, as y'all guys know, a lot of people know, between the different banks we work with. We have credit experts on our team, and Richard is he handles our marketing department. Mm-hmm. So you can introduce yourself, and I'm gonna let y'all get started.
Okay, wonderful. Well, my name is Lance Miracle, and
I'm Kim.
Yeah, my wife Kim, and we were wanting to purchase a home in. It was actually the spring of 21 when our friends were, and so we were excited. And I think about the only thing we really knew is that we'd need an FHA loan because conventional loans were you put 20% down. So we knew that wasn't plausible. And so kind of probably what everybody thinks, or the conventional wisdom that you hear, no pun intended, is that those are the two options, And so what we quickly realized was with an FHA loan, which we hadn't even secured pre-approval in 21, is that our friends were going through this process, and watching them bid and lose or whatever, we thought, well, with an FHA loan and people paying over asking, we were in 20, this is in the spring of 21, we thought, well, there's no way that we can compete in this. Let's just wait a year, and work on credit and some things like that. Because I can imagine someone saying, or, I told Kim, I said, I can't imagine us saying, yes, here's our deal. We want you to help with closing costs. And then when they were done tussing our hair and saying, it's so cute of you to ask that, move on, then, we would be without a house still. So anyhow, so then after Christmas of last year, we started looking at trying to get pre-approved, and I was working hard to get our credit up to a point with a credit union that we have individually. And then I don't remember at what process that I was surfing about January or whatever, but I saw Jerome's picture online as an ad or whatever. And it said something about teachers. What was it? It was grants for teachers.
Yeah, it was a grant, some sort of a grant program that would be available to some teachers in order to secure a home purchase.
And since that was
something that, as a teacher, it's like, well, that's a possibility for us then that might actually help us to get to that 20% number.
Mm-hmm. Or paying the 3.5% towards an FHA, so at that point we I think I clicked on it and I said I would like to know more, and then we heard from someone on Jerome's team, and kind of that was really when we kind of began walking with him. And I think what we were impressed with is that our goal was because when May rolled around, we would either have to renew a lease that we were in or hopefully have a house. So we had about 5 or 6 months to play with there. But what we loved about working with Jerome and his team members was that they were wanting us to help us with that goal too. And we didn't feel like we were just another client, it was relationship built. And so when we decided to do the pause in the spring of 21, one of the things that Kim and I talked about is like, let's just commit to pray for the next year. God knows the house that he wants us in. He knows where it is, and so that was something that we did in the months prior as well. And so we saw many homes, and after we had secured some financing, we were attempting a few, and I don't know, we ended up looking at probably 8 or 9, or we looked at many more, but we bid on about maybe 8 or 9. And Jerome was always super professional, as well as his team members. And then we would get the text back from him that we didn't get this one, but don't get discouraged. He always had a positive twist in delivering the bad news. But ultimately what we found is that in many of the cases, God protected us from something that, because one of the things that we're having to do is I learned about a clean offer. At times when the housing market is super competitive, it's like, having the cleanest offer without muddying it up with, I need you to pull this tree out, or you need to get rid of this, or do an inspection or whatever. And so the interesting thing is there was one that we were really, really set on, and we didn't get it, but we had an inclination that we might have been the second or third person in line. And we kept looking around, and we bid on maybe 2 and didn't get it. But this finally, there was this one that had been on the market for a good period of time, and we would see it periodically, and we thought, well, that's probably too expensive for us, and so forth. And anyway, so we looked at one that wasn't terribly far from here, and that was going to need a lot of work. And so we were kind of discussing that with Jerome, and I said, well, why don't we just go look at this one, out here? And we did, and we really liked it, the use of the space and that sort of thing. So here's what's interesting. As soon as we put our offer in on this one and it was accepted, we heard that other house that we were hoping for didn't appraise, like by short of 40,000 or something, which would have meant we would have lost our earnest money and would have been, back to renting and back to square one. So the whole process was just one that, you don't know what you don't know. And so when you have a team like Jerome's to help guide you through the process, another thing that we did was, as we moved along the process, we adjusted our financing for this home because of some, I can't remember what they were, but there was some issues with the teacher grant, and it was more advantageous to do another direction. And so anyway, we showed up for our closing on this house, and the lady came in with all of her paperwork, and she's like, okay, and so today you will owe your closing, and she's flipping through it, and she's like, okay, 0? I'm like, wow, I never see that. I thought, well, you haven't met who we met anyway.
Yeah.
And so
it was Jerome he knew our goals, and he knew where we were financially. And so the cash that we did have, we were able to keep to, help with moving expenses and those kinds of things. And
the
our goals were kept in mind. So that's a lot of what mattered to me. I didn't ever feel like someone was coming in trying to push their goals and their agenda.
Right.
We're working towards our goals and the things that would be best for us in this purchase.
Yeah, and his team and him were very patient, and you didn't get the sense that you were being rushed along. We had some acquaintances that were realtors, and it would be just like, oh my goodness, we're just selling these houses like hotcakes. And so I was like, well, that's, it was discouraging for us, but when we would hear some things, but whenever we were talking to Jerome and them, we were encouraged and didn't lose heart, because we would find a home, and we did.
That's awesome.
Do you remember, Lance and Kim, what was your total cost out of pocket? Do you remember with your inspection fee? And I don't remember, but do you remember what your total cost out of pocket, if you would just estimate?
Was it like 3,500 or something like that?
About 3,500, but then we received that back after closing, didn't we?
Half of it or something. I can't recall specific, but it was 2,000 or 3,000.
Because we put down the earnest money and then had the inspection fee, but then we received a check back after closing for all of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we actually got money back, which, helped us, like she said, with some of the moving costs and things that you need.
You always need new light bulbs and,
Yeah.
extension cords where you didn't need one before and those kinds of things that, that just become extra little
Yeah.
expenses when you're first moving into a home. So.
And this home is only 2.5 years old. So we had some peace of mind that as newer construction, we're not going to be facing high cost replacement things. And then they introduced us and talked to us about warranty. And so we did that for the first, I think, 18 months or something. So we're still living under that, which is some peace of mind as well. But all in all, a great experience. And we would highly recommend Jerome and his team because, as Kim was saying, it's about helping meet your goals, and you feel the sense that they're walking with you,
Yeah.
Right. One of the things I want to go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, Jerome, there are a lot of similarities, with your experience and the experience my wife and I had. We had made some offers on properties where Jerome came back and he said they rejected the offer. Right. And we had bid over, what the asking price was. And I, well, do they want to counter? And he's like, no, they just rejected the offer. And,
Yeah.
and so, you're right, kind of to some of your points, right? You can't get discouraged in the process. And the other thing you said was, that, man, you have to go out and you have to look at properties. You can look at all the online photos that you want. You can do the 3D tours. You can even get an agent to do a video walkthrough for you. But, you have to go look at the space and,
remember that kids game, Hungry Hungry Hippo?
Yeah.
That's what we would joke. It's like, this is like playing Hungry Hungry Hippo, and you just grab something and then turn it over and see what you got.
Yeah.
Is what the process felt like, the home buying process. But with Jerome and them, they helped us navigate that very well. So
And one of the biggest things that people don't realize, they hear the term realtor, and Richard and I, because Richard, what do we get, about 7,000 leads a year or something like that, that you produce, or I don't know what the number is.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
Right. So the misconception that people have when they hear the term realtor, they just assume that our organization does traditional real estate. And our mission is that we change it, we flip it to based on customizing it for the family. And it doesn't matter what the price point of the home is, but is to give the family multiple options from a financial standpoint with different mortgage products that are out there. And me being a program director, right? And that's what I look at. I interview a lot of banks, I interview a lot of loan officers to fit the need for the family versus traditionally, agents when they go to school, or loan officers when they go to loan officer school or real estate school, they're not taught what we're talking about right now. It's usually a person bragging and say, I sold X amount of houses, 1,000 houses a year, or whatever, 100 houses a year, right? But that family, my heart goes out to a lot of families because nobody really customized it to see what was most important for the family from a financial standpoint. If you had 20%, Lance and Kim, the question is, would you want to give up 20% on the house that you're buying, or did you want to give up the 5%? Did you want to give up the 10%, or did you even want to give up the 3.5%? Or 3%? But most families never had the opportunity to reject it, to say no.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like what you're saying is like, so in some sense, the old model is a very compartmentalized, where the realtor does their thing, the financing does their thing, and you're the one meaning the individual is the one trying to make it all work and make sense of it. And so the service you offered helped make it a lot more fluid, even as upon closing and helping us or putting us in touch with the person to make sure that all the utilities were set up and on time. And, that was a tremendous help, working with them. So it's just, the experience was just A+, and we couldn't say enough about how well it went.
I appreciate that. Richard, is there any other questions? We would have never met without you. With technology and your gift with marketing, what you've done for the company, and I get a chance to meet amazing families like the Miracles. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions. I was just, I guess the thing that I was going to add, I talked to a lot of lenders, I talked to a lot of realtors, and I think from the support position that I provide for clients in the real estate space, it always amazes me how many realtors only work with one lender. And I was having this conversation with a client last week, and it's like, so, you know, when the typical real estate person works with a client, if they don't fit into the box, they don't get into a house. And so that's where I think it's important for people to, you know, to watch videos like this, to, you know, to get some education on home financing, and realize that, you know, just because a family member, a friend, a coworker says you need to put 20% down, and you got to have a 780 credit score, it's not true. And you just have to keep, you know, you have to keep asking questions and learning. So I appreciate you guys sharing your story. You know,
Yeah.
and I was telling Jerome, you know, it's one thing to provide marketing services, right? But it makes what I do even more gratifying, you know, when I know it's actually helping somebody. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming on today to share your
We're
story.
happy to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Love to do it.
Thank you so much.